Okay, guys. We'll give people a few minutes to kind of roll in. But for now, if you have anything you'd like discussed tonight, or anything you're dealing with, or anything that's bothering you, feel free to put it in the chat and we'll address it. Let me just make sure there we go. Otherwise, just give yourself an opportunity to stop. Just land in this moment. Let all the pushing and pulling of your day come to a stop. So that you can enter the world beyond the veil. There's a vast ocean of reality that is covered up by the thinnest veil, a veil of your shifting attention, popping from one thing to the next, just holding a bunch of temporary images in place, covering up the vastness of this moment. Give yourself a chance to just let that go. And sit with what's left. The habit of shifting your attention to all the moving images in the illusion can be challenging to let go of. And so what we do is we pick something, literally anything, to anchor our attention on. In this class, we pick the breath. But it could be anything outside the realm of your personal story. It can even be something in the realm of your personal story. But it has to be one thing. Something that causes you to stop shifting your attention around. And as soon as you give your attention to it, reality opens up in front of you. You might not know what you're seeing in the beginning, but the more time you spend there, the more you come to understand. So let's give our attention to the breath. Attention at the forehead and crown. And just be with the simplicity of breathing. And when the mind comes in to try and get you to shift your focus, simply don't play with it. When the mind comes in to tell you that you're uncomfortable because you're not doing what it wants, simply don't play with it. Just return to the breath, return to the breath, return to the breath. And if you do that, a stillness will descend upon you that will help you stabilize your attention. And the veil will start to part. Let's do that now. Pretty much everything I teach you in this class is to help you shake loose of the illusion. To help you get to a place where that veil can part, so that you can be with reality, infinity, the vast everything that you are. Let yourself slow down. Because it's your sense that something needs to happen that keeps you stuck in the story. Your sense of time. You have to let things stop. that stopping is the illusion. So do that now. Slow way down with your awareness wide open on this moment. As you breathe. And now that you've steadied yourself on the side of the pool, let go of the wall and just float out to the center. Open up and let go. And just let it all move through you. As you breathe in and out, simply and without effort. Open up to the center. Let go of your little protections. And let this moment in. There's a teaching coming forward that I really don't feel like teaching. I'd rather just stay in the silence. You know, I don't think it's any news to anybody that the US is in a bit of a catastrophic phase. You know, there's a bill that just passed that's going to do a lot of harm without really doing any good. And I can feel the suffering of people around me for days, just shocked at what's happening, and the fact that the more you know about what's happening, the more you realize just how much is changing for the worse. And I think one of the things that's kind of hard is that I feel very stable. I care that it's happening. I would do anything to stop it if I could. But at the end of the day, if I let it have me, then all this personal power is given away. Wherever I place my attention, that's what expands. So if there's not a whole lot I can do about something, to spend time catastrophizing even the catastrophic it comes down to what we've talked about before. It's not about is it right, it's about is it useful. It's not useful to anybody. Even to turn it all into a bunch of just talking points and gossip. At some point, there may be something I can do to help. And when that moment comes, I'll be all in. But until then, if you let other people's lower consciousness direct you, your consciousness will lower. It'll make it harder to get the veil to part so that you can be with what's real. If the veil isn't parting, if you're not able to find that comfort, if you either haven't evolved to that point spiritually, or, life kind of goes like this spiritually, if you're in a dip where the veil isn't going to part, then how you move through the illusory world matters. And wherever you place your attention, you're going to go down that road. My advice, if you're going to look at those things at all, and you should be aware of them. It's important to be aware of the storyline that you're sharing with an entire nation. Do it without pearl clutching. Yes, it's horrible. Yes, it shouldn't be happening. And no, the president is actually not the problem. People like that have always existed. They've always existed. They were here in the best moments of your life. They'll be here in the worst moments of your life. They grow in permissive environments. They're here because the world we've created permitted it. And you and I, we were born not in a different time, not in a different place. We were born here. This reflects something in us. And so the best thing you can do when you're seeing something completely egregious, when you're seeing something that just you have a lot of strong feeling about, is to take that and recognize that somewhere inside of you, you resonate with what's wrong. Somewhere inside of you, you're like that. It doesn't mean it's the sum of your being, but somewhere inside of you, that exists. And try and recognize it. Try and bring that into the light. When we look out around us and we see what's happening and have a strong catastrophic feeling around it, we're looking at a part of our own shadow. And rather than getting self-righteous about it, which, we all do, the useful way to approach it, at least at this phase, when there's really not a lot to be done, is to try and recognize that in ourselves so that it can't hide anymore. Seeing it in someone else makes the overt covert, and then you can't change it. When you recognize that what you're seeing outside of you is on some level reflecting something inside of you, because otherwise it would not be able to push your buttons in the same way. That makes the covert overt inside of you, and it makes it manageable. So I think we need to catch ourselves when we start catastrophizing, when we start building up all these storylines, when we find ourselves getting performatively outraged. To let that be our trigger to actually use this to grow. So there it is. That's the teaching I didn't feel like giving. Let's see what somebody wrote. Joanna has problems with the political stuff. It's not separate. It's part of your life. It impacts you, and it's not separate. There's nothing off limits in spiritual life. There can't be. If there is, it just becomes an area you're not willing to deal with. Every decision you make politically is not separate from your morality. It's not separate from your ethics. It's not less impactful on your consciousness because, oh, that's just politics. There's no such thing. It's all the same. And this class is not here to just make you feel good. It's here to wake you up. But I don't enjoy upsetting people. Okay, so the question is, how is it part of unity? Do you mean discussing politics? How is it part of everything else? Or do you mean how are the negative things happening fitting into the whole? Say more. We're all sharing one world. We're all sharing one mind. There are different levels of consciousness, and people make decisions based on those levels of consciousness. They're all areas we've been before, most of us. And when we see somebody else making decisions we wouldn't make, we can sometimes kind of separate ourselves off from the part of us that actually can understand where they're coming from, but just wouldn't choose to do that. Let's see. Okay, how is it part of unity? I mean, it's used as a tool of separation like racism, and it's a question I've had. I see. Okay. So, take a step back and look at what has happened because of the divisive things that have happened in this country. So, in Canada, everything was set for somebody with less democratic values to win. But because they saw in this country such a strong influence of the idea of separation, a democratic leader won in Canada. And this has been happening in other countries as well. And it's all happening in response to the crazy crap we're dealing with in this country. So it is all part of the unity. It's just that it's a picture that is bigger than any of us as individuals. So if we're in an individual separated off person consciousness, we are going to be impacted by the fact that we are at a point on the giant map of unity. We're at one of the kind of depression points on that map. The whole world is growing in consciousness by seeing the contrast of what's happening in this country. And that doesn't mean that it should be allowed to happen, and that doesn't mean that we should think it's a good thing. But it is one big thing. It's not the first time it's happened, it's just the first time it's happened to you. Maybe it's kind of the first time it happened here, but only, if you are any version of a minority, it's happened to your people probably worse in this country than what we're seeing now. What's so shocking now is it might actually negatively impact non-minorities, which is it still shouldn't be happening, but it's not as new as it looks. I think it will still disproportionately impact minorities. And there's nothing okay about it. And in every moment, you should be a balancing factor within the storyline. If there is something you can do to help, you help. But you recognize that just getting worked up for the sake of getting worked up is not actually helpful. When it's time to speak up, speak up. But catastrophizing just because there's a catastrophe actually makes you a puppet of the catastrophe. That's the point. And a puppet of a catastrophe is not helpful. It just magnifies the catastrophic. Does that make sense? Am I pissing people off? I'd much rather meditate. But it's something, we're here to understand what we're doing in this world. And so we have to walk around with our eyes open, and we have to know when we're being self-indulgent. We have to know when we're allowing someone else's vision of the world to use our sensory body like a puppet. Okay, so Chelsea says, my grandparents were imprisoned in internment camps during World War II for being Japanese, born in America. It seems as if we're living through something very similar right now. Is there a reason that these things keep cycling through history? And is there something personally we can do to prevent them? These things are happening because this is the realm of duality, and the early to middle stages of learning in duality are selfish stages. Look at your own children, right? They go through these phases of just being complete dictators themselves. And then they slowly grow up, they wake up, they become better people. We pretend that they were always good people, but if we're being honest, they were little Nazis for a good portion of their life. Not just your children, Chelsea, I mean all children. It's just part of evolution, and that whole spectrum is here all at once. And it's there so that we can actually balance ourselves against it. You know, if it just disappeared and we never saw it again, there'd be nothing to kind of check ourselves against. So there's this just mess of context that we have here. And sometimes that mess is a phase where we're the victimizer. Sometimes that mess is a phase of we're the victim. And we learn from all of it. What you can do to prevent the negative things from happening is you can vote. You can protest. You know, you can let your voice be heard. Which is different than just never shutting up about, you know, something bad that's happening that you don't intend to do anything about. You know, I think a lot of what's happening in our country is actually people trying to do this in an adult way, you know, trying to go through legal systems in a very slow, methodical way that leads to incontrovertible evidence and things like that. I think any chance you get to be an ally to somebody in need is a chance you should take. But until that moment happens, you can't be a puppet for the catastrophic. It's how they control you. And most of what you're a puppet for aren't even the most egregious things that are happening. They're the distraction things that people do to try and get you all worked up about this so you don't even notice that. And if you're so worked up, when something actually needs to be done, you'll miss it. A spiritual warrior is meant to be awake in this moment, whatever it is. Eyes open, heart open, feeling into this environment. Don't give that up just because someone's dangling something awful in front of your face. Okay, so Tract is saying, I can go into my heart and make a difference through energy and vibration and cultivation of deeper peace within. Yes. Absolutely. Especially if you find yourself caught up in it, retreat inward and get some distance from it first. But ultimately, ideally, you want to be able to stand in the face of anything and not be owned by it. And the way you do that is by actually taking a step back while staying open and seeing the big picture. The big picture over a span of time, the big picture over a span of geography, the ultimate balance that we are all a part of. And if you can actually hold that awareness, then you can be present with whatever is happening. And if you see that nothing is kind of being called for you to do in the moment, you don't have to catastrophize. You're just aware. You're aware that whatever's going down will eventually come back up and go back down again. Chelsea, your grandparents were imprisoned in internment camps during World War II, which is horrible. But that's not the whole story of their life. They had wonderful lives after that. And probably appreciated their life even more because of the context of what they had been through. Which, again, it doesn't make it okay. It's not about condoning. It's just recognizing the mechanisms of growth and the mechanisms of Maya and the mechanisms of life. You're here, we're all here to be forged in the fire over and over and over again. We get as far as we can in this body, and when the fires finally burn the body off, we come back in another body. It was never made to be easy. And it's okay. That it's not easy. It doesn't have to be. It's okay if I don't survive it. I don't have to. All that matters is that the time I spend here is spent in expansion and growth and moving forward and helping wherever I can. If you get into the weeds of all the rest, you're not going to be very helpful. Are there any questions or even rebuttals? People are going to need us to be wide awake, ready to recognize a need when it arises, and not too exhausted and beaten down to act on it. That actually requires that we have our wits about us, our energy intact, and that we are at one with what we can give instead of being at one with something that has victimized people. And that's a matter of where you place your attention. That's the road through this. It's not like suddenly there are horrible people in the world. There were always people in the world that were just in a lower state of consciousness, out just for themselves, didn't care if it was the expense of everyone else. Those people have always been here. That was the 1980s. Those people didn't go anywhere, it just went covert. It's just overt again. All right. Why don't we step back into meditation a little bit? I can tell I've riled you up a little. Attention at the forehead and crown. Take in the entire room and just breathe. Let the energy of every breath move whatever feelings are in your body through your system. Those feelings are there because of what you're looking at. Shift your attention. Can you see how when you do this, the whole room gets brighter? The reflection coming back more comfortable. You can lift out of the story. And when you step back into the story, what reflects on the screen in front of you is a part of you. If you see other people being calloused, what part of you is calloused towards the feelings of others? Maybe there are people you don't care so much about. Or animals. There's always something. If it's getting you, there's something. So you can lift out of it and take a break from it, but when you're back in it, take some responsibility for yourself, for your own shadow, and just let that be in the space. In my career, I've had people try and publicly defame me. And it's so shocking at first. But then I realize half the work I do publicly defames them. And I don't always bother to consider it. And in understanding that, there's an equality, not of identification, but of energy, an equalizing effect between victim and victimizer. They both disappear. You can't help anybody if you're a victim. You can't help anybody if you're a victimizer. You have to step off the spectrum. All right, guys. Anything anybody wants to ask or add or say before we end for the night? Remember that humans are very adaptable, and so are you. Learn as much as you can. You'll find a way to grow from this. And you'll find a way to help others grow if you're growing. It just comes with the territory. Thank you, Suki. All right, guys. Have a good night.